You're out in the back?
What was that?
Oh,
Keep her left.
I don't want to... give me a bit more of a gap.
Yeah.
Because I just...
Social distance.
Well, not so much social distancing as I don't want to wreck both my tractor and my Jeep in the one hit. I love this time of year. I think the country's beautiful. All the trees are blooming at different times, coming into leaf. It's just all the different shades of green. I love the winds. I know the winds are a weed, but I just love the orange, bright yellow colour they bring at this time of year. I kick myself if I can't get out to make a few videos at this time of year. That's why we never really traded at any of the shows like Balmoral. It just lands at an awful time for us. This is a surreal year. Like there's no events on at all. They've just cancelled the Bunning Championships in the Republic of Ireland. Would be one of the biggest shows in the country. There's talk they were going to hold off to maybe June to make that decision, but they've obviously reached it now. They might still do the flying aspect of it, but the actual whole exhibition side is over. Balmoral was to be August. That was postponed and it's been cancelled. It's going to be the new year before there's really many, if any, events. It's a strange time. Lots more pedestrians around. There's people walking around our roads. We're about 5 miles from the town. I reckon the more adventurous walkers are straying into roads that they've never been on before just to get a bit more exercise. Motorways almost empty. So it's a real time. Like, we'll probably never see anything like this in our lives again. If we're honest, you know, short of there being another worldwide pandemic, but you think these things will never happen, that they only happen in Hollywood and movies. Like, who would have believed that every country in the world shut down, just stopped doing everything except for like the core essentials? We all need food. Who would have believed it? There's definitely a growing sentiment of frustration. The challenge is now, are we going to drag this thing on out, or are we going to try and bite the bullet? I don't know. It's not a decision that I'd want to have to make, because ultimately you couldn't please everybody, even if you tried. So got our hands back in this thing only yesterday, really. I'm really pleased. Like, obviously I had to bring her up home from the mechanics last night. Went to lift test this morning, hired off a local contractor, William Johnson, and I'm growing to like her. It seems not all 7/8/10s have been created equal. If Bertha, the last one, had have felt like this to set in, Bertha would still be here. Another level of comfort with the TLS in her. Now, I'd say the TLS, when I sent it to the mechanic, was hard, and these things are notorious for needing a ton weight block on them to make them smooth to set in. We ain't got no ton weight block on today. We checked the bottles. It was JF that told me about this. I never thought about it. He says they have a reputation that way, but he says if one of the two gas bottles is down and isn't the right pressure, it can appear that it's really hard. So I thought we'll check that when we're at it. 60 quid, regassed the 3 bottles. So anyway, this thing is riding, I feel, quite smooth for not having the front weight block on her. And she's not floating like crazy, don't get me wrong. She's not all floaty, but she just hasn't got that pop on her that the last one did.
Both the first 7/8 he had and the second, like, both of them was very clean. He was lucky coming across the ones he did, but it was the 50k. I think probably getting scunnered. He was out carting in the old tractor and he wasn't fit to keep up with the big boys. He was just that wee bit slower. And the 50k now, if you're working beside a contractor, you need the speed. Like, you need that bit of poke to go, and the front linkage on her really does set her off, like, as well. Like, I'm not a John Deere man, but if I had that sitting myself, I'd be happy enough. Deere knows what notion he'll have or what he'll buy next, I don't know, but as long as he buys something that's useful that I can use about the farm here, like, that's the big thing in it. He seems happy. He's spent a lot of time there back and forward getting bits and pieces done to her, and he was getting things tidied up on her that would not have bothered me. If you've seen my machinery, There was nothing wrong with his tractor, but everything had to be just fixed right. And so I think he's a lot more content now. He's all them wee bits and pieces sorted, and just needs to get a big weight block on her and really set her off. Like, I don't need a big power for my machinery, but machinery now is just getting that big without the power, and for an older tractor, like, she has the yoke to do that heavy work, like.
So, this is a question for all you YouTubers out there. How do I fake the fan speed? I've got nothing to plug my wires onto my viscous fan. How do I simulate what voltage or what plug or what wire do I need to put on there onto the old connection to simulate that the fan is turning, to make that sensor realise that the fan's there and it's turning, or fake it? How do I do that? Answers in the comments, please. I don't know which of these two gets is the lesser of two evils. It's tight turning in that way. Mr. Clyde says to turn on that one and come out.
Aye, you can do that.
I left my indicator on like an idiot.
I'm saying that.
It's been a while since I have done much tight gate work. I'm always wary of another man's PTO shaft. Dare to go back home wet wrecked. Ah, world of room. Look at that there, boys. Look at that there. I like to talk about the bond. The bond is forming very fast, I have to say. I shouldn't have to think of a name. She done 172 at 1000 shaft and 1000 RPM, and she done 184 at 800 RPM, but like, who hangs the tractor down to 800 RPM?
Yeah.
And she should not be touched. But she's the mechanical pump as well.
Right.
Remember, I put the first video of seeing her on the YouTube, and the boys all were like, oh, she'd be lovely if she wasn't the common rail.
Yeah.
She's not the common rail. She's the old school, give her a turn pump.
So what happened there then?
I don't know, she's 2003, and I don't understand that, because you'd have thought that just the progressions. But Sloan tells me, the mechanic, there was 12 variations of engine.
Okay, that's a lot.
In that run,
Yeah.
and they only made them from what, 97 to 2003.
And she's 2003.
She's 2003. But actually, she pulling up there, I was surprised. The first load of Alan's up the road, I was surprised how well she held the speed. The other thing that I'm growing to like about the Autoquad, there's a couple of things actually, but the first is the position of the gear lever. With the normal power quad, where you've got the second stick with the 1, 2, 3, 4 on it, you're usually, when you reach for your high gear, like over here, you're almost touching that window. But as well as that, the Autoquad, I find that she's very sweet on selecting her speeds. So I'm stepping from D to E or E down to D. She's matching my quads for me, and it's a really nice driving experience. I'm really growing to like it. That's a good tail load there now. She's pulling on a 30k and E2, so like down 2 splitters. That's where it would be interesting to have known what the other one would have done with that spreader on this hill. But that's the beautiful thing about the event we ran on the Bull. It's really the only true test of tractors side by side, because I've been in a scenario before where you've chained them together, and I've watched a lot of that stuff on YouTube, on Facebook. You see them popping up all the time. That's why I love that stick. There's no wondering what quad are we in. She picks the right quad for you. You just maintain your momentum. You're not going, oh, I need to get her down, I need to get her down. the on the pull event was we've all the footage out to release, and it was actually going to be out already, but for this crisis having kicked in, and so anyway, that's coming out. Whenever I've been in a scenario that you've chained two together in a field, what happens is both sides dig 4 holes and go nowhere. They just go down. Dry ground, wet ground, doesn't matter. The scenario where you're on the hard ground, what happens is if it's not completely level, whoever has the downhill advantage, ever so slight, will win. So we did it in a silage pit, which had the slightest fall on the floor, and whoever was pointing down the floor won. But then in that scenario, what you do is you just rip your tyres to shreds and pull lumps out of them. So that's not a good idea. And you get into that hopping scenario really easily whenever the two are bouncing, and like that's when you're going to break something, the two tractors hopping. I've yet to see a fair test. Like there's one does the rounds on Facebook there of a Zetter towing. I can't remember what tractor it is that tows backwards. Probably a John Deere, who knows. But you see the great big massive weight block he has on the back of her, and the tyres let way down. The advantage of who's going to win as well is who's got most of the weight on their back axle. Particularly him, he actually got the nose in the air, got all the entire weight of the tractor onto that one axle, and that's what the tractor pullers do. Those tractor pullers you see go down the track at speed, they're designed and they're only going to run about 6 inches off the ground, and the nose is just off the ground, and all the weight's hitting that rear axle. So yeah, it's never been a fair test just chaining them up. I've yet to see a scenario where I'm like, oh yeah, clearly that tractor's better than that one. In that case, and that's where the on the pull concept I thought was fair. You know, identical trailers, identical weights, identical ground conditions, first past the post. Who can get the power down? Who can get through the gears? Who can sustain it? And that was a monumental event to run. Really glad we did it. Really glad we didn't try to do it this year. With hindsight, obviously, we weren't planning to do it this year anyway. But I would love to run it again. I'm going to need some major help the next time, because I want to build the right chassis, put the weight down low, with flotation tyres that have zero risk of flipping, and the guys can really go at it with no fear of wrecking something. I think Alan's drawn us up here thanks to the offer of my help. This would be his out farm up in Ballyno, closer to where I live, and it rarely sees much manure because of the longer haul. He's only got a little rotor spreader himself, so it's always that bit more tempting just to chuck it out closer to home. Like as he said, 3 scoops and the Merlot, and his rotor spreader's full. I'm not quite sure how many he's put in there for me. Not get too crowded away near the house. These things can launch some stuff very far. And this is where I'm a fan of a rear discharge spreader, because you're on nice clean ground, you can see where you've been, tractor's not getting glorified, does what it says in the tent. Alan's Dung is really inconsistent. That was a totally different load to put out of her. One of the best stories I have about spreading dung is when I was filming in England at Harry Wilson's. They must have sent the apprentice out to do a bit of spreading for a farmer, and then word got out that he was stuck because somebody had to come up to the yard from the yard with a shovel to give him a bit of a push out or a bit of a tug out. Anyway, I proceeded to follow in hot pursuit in the Jeep, stuck a chain onto the 434, and she wasn't doing anything. Gave her a bit of a snap at it, snapped the chain. So then he decided to himself, I must go around the back and give him a bit of a push. And I was standing there with a camera, like thinking, I didn't know them Bunning spreaders was made that heavy that they could push up at the back end. Like, I didn't know about that. And I was thinking, I'm just not sure about this. But I said nothing. Stood there with the camera in hand, ready to rock and roll. And to be fair now, he gave him the nudge and he got him out and got him moving. But as soon as his man got out of the hole, he stuck the rotors in the gear. Just the rotor just spun itself out. I had trouble holding the camera steady whenever. It was, I seen that happen. And that's the really hard thing about this job is when you get something that actually genuinely makes you laugh, you want to move and you want to shake and you want to react to it. And you try to hold your composure and hold your camera nice and steady so you get your shot. I haven't hit this in one yet. That's because I don't trust myself. I think I will this time. Merlot's not even in there. Where's the Merlot? Where'd he go?
Am I holding everything up?
What?
Am I holding everything up?
How did our hole show up, Bunny? Do you want to back her in for a minute, Alan?
Nope.
You sure?
I wouldn't want to scratch your nice shiny tractor. I wouldn't want to drive now.
You'd be going well to get the gate post up against the pinwork of the tractor now.
You've seen me drive, you know I would do damage in that thing. Like.
Your Dung's very inconsistent.
You're blaming the Dung, and it's the operator.
Nice tiny job, and that last load is like, right, the first load's just like crazy heavy. And then the next load I'm like, right, I'll give her, you know, same gear as B instead of A, and give her a few more quads, and it's like, where's it at?
To be fair, between the wood chip stuff, the wood chip, there's dry stuff, and then there's just pure slurry nearly in the back of it, and each one of them loads has been different, but I'll grow grass.
Well, I'll fly the drone over the bit that I'm doing right now. That'll solve it all. Right.
I'll get you a shovel, you can go rake her up.
What happened here?
What do you think happened? I opened the back door of the trailer and the bucket wasn't parked just right underneath
Oh,
her.
I thought you were going to tell me that was old Tom.
No, that was me. That was me.
Alan was saying this morning he wouldn't have bothered reversing up in here. But I thought carrying bucketfuls back and forth out this alleyway wasn't a great idea. She's nearly a wee hair high for reversing through a tight gap. But better doing it slower than hitting her first time. That's what my Uncle Jim always told me. His first time every time. Mr. Clydes filling her. I don't need to worry too much. I'll leave it that first run on a bit heavy. I really shouldn't, but there was a guy came on to Facebook there. I really shouldn't give him any airtime because there's a name for guys online who like to go and stir it up like it's been out of fashion, and they just kind of they'll be argumentative just for argumentativeness' sake, you know. And the word for them is they're a troll. So I'll read this out to you. It was in the farming in the modern classic era. After a recent phone call with one of my fellow admin, I feel the need to light a blue touch paper on this nippy April morning. Subject being the most overrated classic. So he's an admin, he's trying to get his group all started up. So, in my opinion, only one tractor lives up to this billing. So many of you love them, but to me they are numb, cumbersome beat of a thing. The John Deere 777810. The reasons for my disapproval. Poor weight distribution is number one. Can't manage a 6-square plough without hanging 2 sets of weights out the front. Number two, unless turned up, the 8.1 litre engine is more or less lifeless. 3, the steering. I mean, I reckon the county has a better turning circle. 4, TLS. I've driven a handful, and they all travel like nutting donkeys down the road, no matter what weight or tyre pressures you're running at. Number 5, Deere should have stopped with the 6.910 and gone straight to the 8.110. Constructive feedback welcome. Right. Well, in my opinion, per weight distribution, I've seen a 5 for a plough hanging on a TM 190 and thought, oh, that's a lot of pressure hanging on the TM. I wouldn't really fancy that. And I don't know what I even want to put 5 on this thing. 2, unless tuned up, it's more or less lifeless. I am happy, so far, happy with how this thing is pulling, standard. I can't say it in the first day, but by the end of the year, I will answer that question categorically. Number 3, the steering. Well, this one came out of the farm and the stoppers were where they were at out of the factory. The first thing we did on the tidying up phase of this was turn the stoppers in and let it come round until the mud guard's going to touch something and do damage and hold it back just enough. So Alan Clydes gates aren't that wide, this yard isn't that wide. What's the problem? TLS, I think, is the next one. Traveling like nutting donkeys. Well, what can I say? I ain't got a weight block on this one right now, and it's definitely making my ride smoother, and we're not nodding. We're definitely not nodding. That was real clickbait there. I don't know how many comments are on it. I can't actually see how many comments are on it, but definitely a few men engaged the other morning on it. Everybody loves to tag me. If anything appears on social media now with a 7.810, everybody tags me in it. Like, I have the reputation now that I'm a fanboy, and I am a fanboy. This one has definitely restored my belief in them. The last one, the lack of TLS, the lack of comfort. I was maybe getting old grumpy or what. I just needed that wee bit more comfort, and now we have it. This seems to be the bus that everybody talked about, that earned the reputation. Guys, it's quite simple, overrated or not, money talks. If these things weren't what they were cracked up to be, they just wouldn't command the money they're commanding. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions, and I'm not saying anybody's wrong. And the measure of a classic is how big the grin is on your head. Simple as that.